am based in the United States. Actually, I'm based between Lagos, Florida, and Lyon. I am always moving in between. I'd like to present a project that I've been researching currently at the University of Florida. So I'd like to introduce my presentation by starting with posing a few questions to the audience. Have you ever wondered who own the viral dance moves on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube? I'm not talking about the video data shared. I'm talking about what is inside the video itself. Like when you upload someone else's music that doesn't belong to you, there's this trigger that says, alert, this is not your music. So I'm asking myself the question, why is there no motion recognition software like a Shazam for dance moves? You can already get where I'm going, right? So I'm asking the real hard question, can we task AI, artificial intelligence, to help us protect intellectual property when it comes to dance moves? Can we take advantage of the arrival of Web3, to create a shared economy for dance and all the unpaid labors of dancers in the age of NFTs? Since the explosion of the Black Lives Matter movement last year, there have been a lot of conversation about racial justice and wealth redistribution. But my interest actually is saying, I don't want to entrust that on people to just do right. So I'm asking, could we pre-distribute wealth before it gets into anybody's bank account? Can we already encode that in our social interaction? The frontiers of technology is about to disrupt dance as we know it. Is it even possible in our current technological advancement to determine who own a dance move before they get permanently minted on blockchains or sold on video games or commercialized on similar platforms without any form of reality mechanism or proper credit to the creators themselves? So I'm currently a research professor at the College of the Arts in the University of Florida. And my current research is at the intersection of technology and African diasporic communal practices as it relates to dance and intellectual property. So we are developing a kind of a decentralized mobile app called Atunda, which I'm going to be talking about in the subsequent minutes now. Atunda is exploring a deep tech solution to solve the problem of appropriation for dancers to have better control of their creations and benefit from their motion data when uploaded onto the digital marketplace. For a start, let me examine the legal and ethical implication of my research and its development process. According to copyright law, dance is copyrightable. The law, however, states that the body of work that is protected must be an original creation that has been memorialized in tangible form, that is, notated or codified in a written form. So a dance move, therefore, is not considered a creative body of work, thus not copyrightable. So here, my question again, who own viral dance moves? All the snippets of dances, dance creation that we or our dancers or audience put online, who can lay claims on them if they happen to go viral and therefore becomes valuable? The bias of the law lies in the poor understanding of dance in the age of virality. The law interpreters use an approach that is now heavily contested as archaic, non-inclusive, and racist from a certain viewpoint. Because the law that exists today favors mostly a Western approach to concert theater choreographic tradition, which elevates the status of the choreographer above the dancers. It is so because the logic that says dance moves or those snippets of dances aren't copyrightable draws their understanding of dance from the basic movement of classical ballet, which aren't unlimited and in possibilities, and of course, must be kept available to be utilized as the choreographer's basic material. But I'm not talking here about an individual movement, the also steps, the plie, the pirouette, or the second position of classical ballet. I'm equally not referring to ordinary motor activities or gestures or commonplace movement or dance step that has no belonging, no proper identifiability. We all can create an accurate mind image. If I say salsa, the basic move in house dance of capoeira, moonwalk, katak, yoga, tai chi, or even flamenco. I'm making a case for signature moves that enter into the category of viral dance trends, both in history or in contemporary times. But most importantly, I refer to a unit of groove, a symbolic movement that can be repeated in a loop and form the base of a variation of an existing dance style, vital emotionalism, rhythm, and further developed through improvisation. For the purpose of Atunda as a digital project, by dance moves, we mean connected dances that gather the information about their properties through cameras or sensors and share this data from a physical body within a given space with other bodies over the internet. Any dance move that is captured digitally and linked over public or private neural networks becomes part of the world of Atunda as I imagine it. And we are saying that such data, especially in the digital sphere, should be traceable to its original owner, whether they are aware of it or not, just like when we all try to upload sounds and music on YouTube or Instagram. So again, you may ask, why protect dances? Why protect dance? Why bring copyright to dance? So let's take Fortnite as a case study. Fortnite is, in case you don't know it, is this ultra successful free-to-play battle royale game, which made over $9 billion profit in revenue in its first 2 years, partly for its use and sale of what they call emotes, that is in-game animation of viral dance moves created by independent Black creators. They do this without any compensation to the creators for their intellectual property. There are several lawsuits against Fortnite, but Fortnite continues to win because of the ambiguity of the law. And Fortnite is not just one, it's just one amongst many games and many other people who are beginning to follow such trend. So yesterday's solution are now today's problems. New technology, as we have noticed, can bring great wealth, but oftentimes not shared prosperity. Fortnite, emotes, whatever they call it, are unethically diversing dances from the original context and erasing the works of artists in the process. This, in my opinion, is a perpetuation of the pattern of appropriation where returns from creative output slips away from the hands of those with less, those who spark viral brilliance from nothing, to those with so much more, absorbing everything they can and erasing the past in the process. But let us be clear. When I talk about dance ownership, I'm actually not talking about the capitalist logic of the big C copyright that undermines the liminal nature of creativity or stay in the way of its evolution. But I'm particularly interested in ethics and the respect for creative traditions, especially those that doesn't necessarily organize themselves on the basis of strict notion of authorship and written agreement. Atunda is a Yoruba word that actually signifies reproduce, remake, recreate, a process by which organisms reproduce themselves. In a general sense, reproduction means making a copy or a likeness, the ability to replicate and multiply, and thereby providing for the continuation of existence. In Africanist traditions, dance evolves within a complex communal setting that has implicit rules of engagement. That is, through time and mutation, borrowing, remix, and collage, new forms evolve with its own context, but ultimately considered as growth and a continuation of existence. So when I say dance move or dance style, when a dance move or a dance style emerges from within a specific African community, through the act of transmission or virality, it reaches the next community, who then adds it to an existing local context or repertoire. And by so doing, evolves a variant of the previous dance moves, which can now be considered original in its own right. But all of this is done with an unspoken but strictly respected terms and conditions that makes referencing seamless. And as a matter of fact, dance partake in the oral transmission of history, of body memories, and contemporary knowledge. When this form of communal practice, of communal creative practice enters the digital sphere, we suddenly realize that we are faced with a peculiar problem because our world today is infinitely more complex than it used to be, therefore, much more difficult to control. We no longer live in a village where we all know one another. where it is expected that every participant in the community understands and respects the common rules. We now live in the whole world, where community and globalization are two extremes that maintains each other. Social media platforms sells the idea that everything is boundless and available for use. So we all love the idea of global community as long as it's about personal freedom and our privileged right to violate and consume the other. But we come up against the limits of that freedom when it's about the concept of responsibility. So freedom has globalized, but responsibility has not. The individual has become a brand with endless need to create objects of attention and self-importance. You know, the likes, the comments, going viral, and the many followers. We like them all. They are the incentives for a good job or an encouragement for creating more engagement in the social field. We cannot but think of our own from our own perspective alone, but in communal setting, in the villages, you know, in African setting, the individual is not an island. It can only exist as part of a group. And the content curation model of our social media and interaction has put the individual on a pedestal, and creating a common creative practice has only become harder. Our identity, that is who we are and how we present ourselves to the world today, is 99% digitally framed through our social media persona. It is therefore paramount that everyone has the data they generate in the digital universe under their own control, because our current social currency and relational economy favors stealing and appropriation over collaboration and equal sharing. This is the repercussion of the fallacy of modernity. Individualism took us away from the big systems, you know, like religion, political ideologies, culture, or community. No one is invested in them anymore, but we are desperate to give meaning to our social life, to our creative life, to our professional life. But how do we do that as individuals? It's impossible. It's almost impossible to do, because we must derive that from something bigger than ourselves. And that's culture, that's community. Community and culture gives us meaningful systems. And because we do not belong to such organizations, because we want to be individuals, and because the internet has created a window through which these individuals can have access to communities, so we steal from them at will. There are lots of creators of content who want to take advantage of the internet and share freely within a data commons system that protects their IP from appropriation. But the ethics of intellectual property, as we have noticed, has been broken by the internet of virality. So since technology isn't neutral and the law isn't helpful, AI is biased, and protocols, algorithms aren't inclusive, it is up to us to encode the kind of future we want, how to structure power and its financial model, how we rebuild and rehabilitate the internet as a creative commons, as a more ethical, democratic, trustworthy, collaborative, open space for exchange and creative imaginations. With Atunda, we thought, what if there is an Internet of Things based on a truly shared economy, a globally distributed ledger, which uses AI, computer vision to learn and identify dance moves, and use blockchain technology to keep time-stamped records and get this asset that people create back under their own control. Concretely speaking, Atunda is building a technology to house a big data of dance in the Metaverse, a digital repository where dance moves are captured, memorialized in tangible forms, and governed through smart contracts. Atunda will harvest and analyze a massive amount of dance moves to produce intelligence. We are double-crossing the law by turning dance into data, data into codes, codes into IP, and IP as currency. When we highlight creativity and sharing as a core value system, we begin to form economies of ideas network, and consider the next stage of our creative economy beyond production, accumulation of productions, services, rendering services, and technological abundance, but to see creativity itself as currency. This new logic of seeing creativity as currency, but not thinking of it as something we must give or we must produce or we must give a service, but just currency, just creativity itself as currency, especially in the digital field, in the digital world. This will create new economic opportunity for dance makers. And in essence, it will lay a background for cutting-edge interactive system to synthesize, preserve, remotely teach, freely share, collaborate, and revolutionize dance and movement in the digital age. Furthermore, Atunda will revolutionize kinesthetic learning and transmission in the age of AI, blockchain, and data security. In summary, we will work to make Atunda an ethical, secured, decentralized, and automated mobile app, an open source system that allows users to share freely and others to use freely while AI and blockchain keeps the record. This is a solution built on neutral, open access infrastructure controlled by no one person. A solution where currency, incentives, royalty, and trust are built in. A platform where users can own their data and their app don't spy, manipulate, or sell their data for ads. A platform where a community of creatives can verify and auto-regulate the flow of content, knowledge, and their various historiographies. In conclusion, this, in my estimation, is going to move us from the Eurocentric notion of dance notation to a much more universal language of dance coding and codification, using motion capture technology to record not just the form, but equally give an account of the unit of groove within a dance move. And of course, this will be of great importance to all the world cultures that have been left in the margins of the history of dance, which, as we know, is very, very, very Eurocentric. Even though the contemporary global economy was born from the back of slave trade and colonialism, and it continues to steal, appropriate, commodify, and profit from the cultural products of Black, Afro-Latinx, and indigenous peoples all over the world, often under the guise of globalization, inclusion, and multiculturalism. To build racial equity, Atunda is a project that is deliberately drawing on the Afro-Indigenous knowledges and cultural practices to strengthen the technical infrastructure of our community to fully participate in the digital revolution and to intentionally return the value of cultural products and labor back into the hands of the creators and their communities. It is finally possible for the global resonance of Black, Afro-Latinx, and indigenous people to lead the contemporary global economy, the contemporary global creative economy. Thank you very much. And that will be my presentation.
Thank you, Qudus, a lot for this very interesting video and presentation. Since we still don't have questions from the audience, I would like to ask you, like, how exactly do you imagine this process of having the rights of movement? Like, how do you see it? Is it, you were talking about an app and a way, but how we can capture a movement and have the rights for it? I was always also asking myself that question. Also, like, if we go back to the Laban notation or something as a way to capture movement, and is a video, for example, is a way of that, or how do you see it? And how is it with folklore dance, for example? To whom does folklore dance belong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. And I think one of the reasons why it becomes important for all the other world cultures to also come on board, to start thinking of how do we notate dance. Laban notation actually committed the error of only being useful for Western dances, because it is actually recording forms. But I come from a tradition where dance is not really about the form. It's actually about the groove that is within it. That's how we actually create identity for dances. It can look the same, but it doesn't feel the same. So if it doesn't feel the same, then it's something else. So we are always very excited about the possibility of also knowing that we can also dance with the spirit. We cannot only dance with the body. So how do you record that? How do you capture that? And when we started asking the question, we realized that actually motion capture technology is actually the best that we can think of right now. When we use sensors, when you use camera, you use your mobile phone to record it, there is no question whether this is what you say it is or not. But now the problem is that artificial intelligence needs a lot of data. It needs so much data. And the amount of data we all have produced in the last 10 years, especially with Instagram, with TikTok, with YouTube and Facebook, it's amazing. So what we are doing is that we are actually creating a protocol that allows for us to be able to learn from all of those data that is already online. And it's not something that one person or one group of people can do. Actually, we need the whole global community of dancers to participate in the curating and in the labeling and in the accurate information about those dance forms and dance moves. And I continue to say dance moves because that's what I find interesting, especially I come from a context whereby young people in Nigeria are currently evolving what we call Afrobeats. And Afrobeats is rapidly going global. Even Beyonce's latest video called Black is King used the aesthetic of these young people from A to Z in the entire project. And the bottom line of that, the person who is becoming richer and wealthier and more famous is Beyonce and Disney. These guys who are in the suburb of Lagos, who are busy with their daily life inventing these things, and they know they can say, oh, this move was invented by Wisdom and it's called Laba Laba. This one is invented by Yemi and it's called Bese. And this one is, so they have actually come to a point where they are no longer talking about compositions, but they're actually talking about dance moves. And I like, okay, maybe it's our time that we use, we are creating cars that are going to be self-driving. You know what they're using? They're using a system called, an AI system called computer vision and machine learning. So if we can use computer vision and machine learning to do surveillance, the cameras that is looking at all of us on the street, if they can do that, if they can create a car with it, why can't we also use it to know how to look at dance and say, this dance, I know it. Actually, the first time this dance came into the internet was by this person. And then we can continue to at least start from here to be able to say, okay, maybe all the things we've done in the 18th century, 19th century, it might be difficult, but we leave that to the scholars. But if the scholars themselves has a tool and a database and a data bank that they can use, then they can continue their research. However, all these young boys and young girls who are creating moves right now, they already have a tool for them to do that, so that we don't come again in 200 years' time and say, this dance is a Nigerian dance. This dance is a Spanish traditional dance. No, traditional dance doesn't exist. Somebody composed that shit. And I'm like, how come we cannot have a way to actually remember and have a way of actually creating a system whereby we can do proper referencing, especially in the age of virality?
Yeah, so it's more also about choreography more than a move by itself. No, like it's some movement put in together in a special constellation, and then how to keep that choreography and how to keep that rights of the choreography.
From my own viewpoint, we do not have a word for choreographer in Yoruba, for example, but we have a word for dancers, and I've always been very wary of this eternal genius role, all-seeing eye role we give to choreographer in the Western context. Because at the end of the day, dancers are the ones who actually make the work, and the choreographer goes ahead to copyright the entire piece and say, it's my work. And when there's a royalty to be paid, it's paid only to the choreographer. I find that it be kind of like problematic, especially in the current dispensation, current time that we live in. Dancers are given a lot, are giving a lot to the choreographer. And I feel like there must be a way to credit and to respect dancers and their dances, even if it's just one move.
Totally, yeah. There must
That's
be
what I
a
mean to
new
say.
world, yeah, not only choreographed by, but there must be something more, because it's more than the work of the choreographer. You're totally right. We have a question from the audience. Here, Raphael is our audience.
Hello, check 1, 2. My name is Raphael Musa Hillebrand. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm very much inspired, and you using this word groove, you know, rather than dance move. I think it taps into the last thing that was said, is of this definition of what is a dance move, what is a style, where is a groove. And I have to think of Dr. Francis Guadalupe. He's a Caribbean scientist and teacher, scholar, who framed this quote, "To groove is to rebel." And he explained that by saying, if you live in a spatial world where all the oppression is defined by spaces and lines. This is my body, it's over here. This is your body, it's over there. This is my car, this is your da-da-da. To get out of this oppression and to get out of these limits, people tap into another dimension, into time. And a groove exists not in space, it exists in time, and it connects us through time. He says, if you have a groove like, then the first, it's not separated from, it's not separated like you and me are separated. Suddenly the groove connects the bodies, the time, the vibration, all this. And to groove is to rebel is a very, it makes all dances a political statement. It makes all these people, even when they're unconsciously just in their break while they're working, they just start to tap into this little power, into this space of empowerment. And I felt like your whole concept is of tapping into this force of groove as a rebellion and bringing it into a materialist tool, weapon that we can actually use against capitalist white supremacy exploitation. And I was wondering if you're aware of Dr. Francis Guadalupe's work, of this way to tap into it, and if you heard of it.
Thank you very, very much for that question. I actually don't know about Dr. Francis' work, and I will absolutely write it down, and I would like to research more on that. Yeah. But I, of course, in terms of the idea of groove, you know, it was the basic thing for us. You know, actually, I think I started traveling to Europe from the age 17, and very quickly I was already being tasked to give dance classes in France, especially. And I realized very quickly that there is actually a real problem with the understanding of groove within the Western concept of dance, because it's not something that you can really teach. You know, it's something that must come from inside. So it was something that I realized very quickly, that actually this is something that we actually didn't learn. So it's very difficult to teach it, you know, because we just grew up within a context that allows for that groove to happen, to understand that this is what connects us. This is what links us to the next thing, just like you said. This is what links this to the next one. So the groove in Afrobeat, for example, and its motion and its movement from one community in Ghana to the ones in Lagos and the one in Johannesburg, taking it next, and then moving it to Angola, then from one in Angola, taking it to Ivory Coast. You can identify the groove within all of those configuration and constellation, but the forms begin to change, small, little by little. And I want a situation whereby artificial intelligence will be able to help us, because if I can look at the salsa dance and I say, this is salsa. If I can look at moonwalk and I say, this is moonwalk. But I can also look at moonwalk and say, this is moonwalk, but this is not being done by Michael Jackson. If I have the capacity to do that, I just feel like, you know, technology should be able to have that same capacity. So we want to use dance to help technology to know how to see better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Raphael. Do we still have a question from the audience? I'm waiting. No, we reached the end of the time. This is the message I get. I'm telling you the inside Yes, so far. Okay, so thank you, Qudus, very much for this wonderful presentation. And Nora will take over. Yeah, applause.
Thank you.